played a significant role in the evolution of spoken word poetry since its inception, and my next guests want to highlight their positive contributions through an upcoming event. Joining me now are Ajalastarr and Reese. Aja and Reese, welcome to STL TV.
Thank you.
So, Aja, let's start with you and tell us about spoken word poetry. What is it exactly?
Spoken word poetry is basically just poetry where you are using this art form to express things, your emotions, how you're feeling about, love, life, politics, spirituality.
The poetry is written ahead of time, typically, or is it more?
Yeah, typically it's written ahead of time.
And the poet recites their own poetry.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so it's really almost a theatrical presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And Reese, what attracted you to this form of theater, if I may use that term?
Well, I do a lot of community outreach work, and I've written poetry since I was 4. So for me, it was kind of a melding between being able to further my interest in activism and also speak about, those things which I'm politically and poetically driven to talk about.
So you've been writing poetry since you were 4. In Asia, you've been probably writing poetry just as long, just about?
I would say around 5th grade, yeah.
Yeah, and so what was the turning point for you to move towards spoken word poetry? Did you feel an opportunity, like you were saying, to get the word out about what was on your mind?
I don't know about you. I think that for me, it just felt natural, but I definitely feel like I like the reaction that people get when you present your poetry. Because a lot of times it's like you write for yourself, but then when you share it, you never realize how many other people are affected by the words that you speak and the way that you deliver it.
Yeah. So you feel more connected to your audience, per se. Reese, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, yeah, and as I said, I do community outreach work in shelters and do a lot of outreach with homelessness and those who are crippled by such things as addictions and whatever it might be. So for me, poetry is a way for me to relay those stories in a very human way so that people connect with those stories, and that I think it's imperative that we just start looking at people from a less apathetic view that has been adopted in our American society so often.
Yeah. Aja, what can people expect at the She Is Poetry event? How many poets, and give us all the
Well,
details.
we have a lineup of 11 poets, including myself, Lightning, Reese, Sister Soul, X Blue Rain. It's a lot of women in the community who even have their own poetry events that they do on a regular basis. So you can expect to really be connected to some really positive, enlightening, empowering poets, and it's a whole lineup of just some really nice poets.
So 11 women, and each of whom will read how many of their poems?
Everybody will read probably 2 to 3 pieces.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is read the right term? I mean, you just said
no,
it. No,
I wouldn't say read, recite.
Or, because it's a performance, and they've memorized their poems. And
But some of them probably will read, but even in that, it's still going to be an emotional experience.
Yeah. So Reese, I'm curious, we were talking before the show, and we were talking about the cultural, the spoken word poetry being a cultural form in the African American community. And what drew you to this, and how do you assimilate yourself? You're unique in the bunch, right?
Right.
Shall we say?
Well, honestly,
Tina Maria poetry.
Yeah, they do call me the Tina Maria poetry around here, which is kind of comical. But for me, when I first started doing it, I didn't know there was such a thing as spoken word. I just went to a musical open mic, and I asked the guy, I'm like, hey, can I get up and recite some poetry? And I was always drawn towards more of a dramatic oration of poetry. And so he's like, sure, whatever. I'm at a bar and late night, they didn't care. And I just loved it, immediately loved the reaction that the crowd gave. And, and so I started seeking out to see if this was something people typically did. And sure enough, and it just so happens that the people in my personal circle, my friends, family members who are also into it, and, the people in St. Louis especially, I go all over, but people in St. Louis just happen to be African Americans predominantly in this area. Different areas in the U.S. It differs.
Yeah.
But really, I've had a great experience, and I think that if you go out and you share yourself honestly, people will be receptive.
Yeah, and I love your story of being really drawn to that microphone and wanting to share it with others.
You'll see that in all of the poets.
Yeah.
We all have a real
I'm sure
desire.
It's a great event. So we're going to take a quick break, but after the break, we'll be joined by another poet from the She Is Poetry event, and we'll be right back.